Companies like Figma, HubSpot, and Duolingo are all down more than 65%. And the entire SaaS-based industry has lost more than $300 billion in market cap recently. And the most common rhetoric out there is that AI is to blame for this. If you look at different sectors outside of SaaS, like auto manufacturing and credit services, they tend to trade in low PE ratio as opposed to software. For example, auto manufacturers like Ford will easily trade on multiples like 8 to 12 PE, while software companies like Duolingo can go up to 50 or even 200 PE ratios because, well, most software companies actually don't make money in the first place. And unlike highly cyclical industries that depend on supply chain, inflation, supply and demand, and policies, SaaS-based companies have always been easier in valuation because the underlying math to calculate the annual recurring revenue is just subscription multiples. And not only that, unlike auto industries, software companies always had room to grow in comparison. But despite all these facts, Duolingo still lost 68% of their market cap in just 6 months alone. This kind of progression is leading some people to go as far as saying that SaaS is dead and AI killed SaaS through and through. But why? How is AI exactly impacting this? Welcome to Kilbride's Code, where every second counts. Quick shout out to OnSpace, more on them later. When we look at SaaS, it's the highest level of abstraction where users pay monthly or yearly fees to use services provided by software. And unlike other offerings like on-prem, where you have to buy your own equipment, networking, server, and databases, SaaS allows you to just log into Dropbox or Google Drive to store documents without setting up the database, or even log into HubSpot or Salesforce to manage CRM without having to worry about what's underneath it. But how did AI exactly change this, where SaaS-based companies are losing a large share in market cap? If you look at the progression of AI, like MCP back in November 2024, A2A or agent to agent in April 2025, and more recently, skills in October 2025, what we're seeing here is not a replacement of applications, but rather an abstraction on top of application by connecting these systems by leveraging MCP connections using best practices written in skills. And while the common rhetoric is that AI just killed software, in reality, we haven't really seen AI replace Slack or AI replace HubSpot, Salesforce, Duolingo, DocuSign, all of the other applications that we use on a daily basis. In fact, agents are actually orchestrating on top of solid build applications that's already been built. So while AI hasn't really replaced software as we know, what this new level of abstraction is forcing is when it comes down to pricing. SaaS companies typically charge people by per user or per seat. For example, if we go to Salesforce, their pricing plan goes from free to $100 per user per month. And this kind of pricing model allowed investors to project the growth by using ARR as a metric. But as AI agents took on the role of interacting with the applications, where before we had to learn the application by clicking through websites and navigating the applications, now agents are essentially absorbing this entire interactions away from us to agents, which means you could have one agent with a single user subscription, but now shared across 10 people outside of the system, rather than having 10 different users having their own subscription. And the result of all of this is commoditization of the application layer, since what used to be their moat or competitive edge by providing an intuitive application to users is now becoming less relevant, since agents can connect to applications through MCP and use their skills that explain the best practices around how to actually interact with the application. And this kind of rotation is not only forcing SaaS-based companies to switch from per user pricing model to usage-based pricing model. And now what used to be predictable valuation based on user growth measured in ARR is starting to be valued as a commodity based on usage or supply and demand of agentic use cases. And this all brings us to the next point, which is how the broad market is changing because of this. Quick shout out to OnSpace.ai. OnSpace is a platform that lets you build mobile apps by talking with its AI chats like this, where you can go from idea to publishing on App Store with a single click. Here, I'm sending a prompt called GPU cost calculator where I can calculate the projected cost of GPU usage. Once I have the basic app generated, I ask the follow-up question to fix the UI and UX to be more friendly like this. After that, I asked OnSpace to add a login screen, and it generated a login screen like this where I can sign up with an email code being sent so I can apply them so that I can access the app. Once I'm happy with the app, OnSpace allows me to publish it on the App Store for Apple like this. You can also download the codebase directly, add payments and databases on the app itself. OnSpace also has a vibrant tutorials on their YouTube channel that helps you with anything from writing better prompts to building a more secure and managing data throughout the app. They also have great support from AI and human support in one day. I'll leave a link in the description below. According to Goldman Sachs projection, the total addressable market for agents is expected to grow above $50 billion, while traditional SaaS is set to decline. And 2026 is where we start to see a divergence between the two. And consequently, investment from venture capitals is moving away from traditional software products into agents. That's not to say traditional software companies aren't adopting AI into their existing platform. According to Deloitte's survey, more than half of the companies are expected to spend up to 50% of their budget into AI automation. In other words, instead of losing their business to agents, a lot of companies are choosing to also build their own agents directly in their application so that users are inclined to continue user service on their platform instead, which is seen in Salesforce Agentforce, ServiceNow Now Assist, HubSpot also has their own agent, and well, basically every software company now offers agents that know how to navigate their own application out of the box. So what used to be 50 to 100 PE ratios that investors were willing to spend up to is now reduced because investors are no longer sure how much longer these companies are viable beyond 5 or even 10 years down the line as pricing models changes with AI. And if you pair that with the fact that last June, around 10% of the websites in the world were vibe coded using Lovable, which goes to show that at least in the application side, how easy it is to replicate existing applications. That's not to say vibe coded software will replace software, since well-written software requires more than just pure vibe coding. But what it does reveal is that SaaS-based companies are in the position to change how they price and how fast they need to innovate given the pace of innovation that AI brings. What do you think? Do you agree with AI and agents complementing applications, or do you think that agents will replace applications entirely?